Hey, this is Riley from Allegiant. You're watching Heavy New York.
What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York. We are back at the Kingsland in Brooklyn, and we got round 3 with Allegiant. Thank you, Riley, for always coming back.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. First question is deja. Doesn't it feel like a bit of deja vu? It feels like we were just here like 6 months ago on this very couch talking about Apoptosis.
Yep, we sure were. I know. It was such a wild day that day that I hardly remember it. So it's like I was never here.
Yeah. I think there's a certain reason we could blame about that, right?
Yeah. Thanks, Frank.
Yeah. Thanks, Frank. They were nice and hungover for my interview. That was pretty awesome, though.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. All the content we filmed that day ended up being really good. So.
Yeah. But now you're well into the record cycle for Apoptosis or Apoptosis, however everybody's been pronouncing it. One thing I'm curious about is now that you're like well into the record cycle, do you prefer to add more newer material on your set list when the record's been out for a while and it's been processed a little bit more, or do you try to add as like much new stuff on the set list, like when you're on the Caligula's Horse Tour? Did you just try to add as much as possible?
I mean, I prefer adding as much new material as possible, but we work as a democracy in Allegiant, and so it's like if the majority is like, no, like we should play a more well-rounded set for a headliner, and then, other people are like, well, but it's like named the Apoptosis Tour, we should play a bunch of songs from that. It kind of goes one way or the other based off of how everyone feels. So we're still playing a lot of new stuff on this record, but it's not like exclusively new material.
Yeah.
But yeah, when we were, when it's still fresh and when it's still new, we, try to play it to kind of like introduce it. And then once, it's been digested for a little bit, we like to play it just because people like know the songs at that point. So, yeah.
When I spoke to you guys last, I actually didn't have a chance to hear the record yet. I was just like asking what we could be expecting on it. But after listening to the record and reviewing it, like you were actually right. You said you didn't want to just continue what you were doing off Proponent of Sentience. But in terms of like doing something different, was the way that people are hearing the album, was that a preconceived idea on how you wanted the record to sound?
Not at all. The writing for this album was extremely chaotic. It was very much different from the way that we had written in the past. We wrote a lot of stuff from the road, which is something we never do. We spent a lot of time hashing out details in the studio, which is something that we do, but not to the extent that we did for Apoptosis. We went into this record not necessarily blind, but definitely with no preconceived notions of like, this is what we want to construct for this record and the direction that we want to go. And it just kind of happened that way, just based off the adaptations and the changes in people's writing styles and, the time constraints that we had on us, because we spent a lot of 2018 touring, and so it kind of put some restrictions on the writing process for sure.
Well, I know from reading about the album that like Apoptosis or Apoptosis, like it's really like a representation, like it's about a cellular organism kind of like multiplying cells and stuff. Did that title at all, or maybe like that concept influence the music at any way, shape, or form, or the lyrics or anything like that?
Sort of. It's a little off the mark. So the whole reason the album is named Apoptosis is because apoptosis in science is the programmed death of cells to make room for like newer, more developed cells. And so that idea of like out with the old, in with the new is kind of more what structures the lyrical themes. And they apply from, other scientific phenomenon phenomena like in stellar tidal disruption and exothermic chemical combustion, to more, religious or societal kind of ideas like in metaphobia or the secular age. And it all kind of like comes to a climax at the point with the title track's lyrics, which are like really straightforward about the whole like, be what you want to see in the world kind of thing, like make positive changes that will not only affect you but the world around you. So that's kind of more where the lyrics are rooted in. It also has kind of like a double entendre that applies to the growth of the band. I feel that, since we've been through so many changes and we've had so many personnel changes and lineup changes and all that kind of stuff that, it took a lot of death, so to speak, to kind of get us to the point where we're at now, which we feel is like the best version Allegiant has ever been. So, that's kind of more where the name comes from and how it affected the lyrics and the themes of the album.
Interesting. That's a really good way of putting it. Now, is Apoptosis like, are you trying to like maybe engage the listener into the story, or is the record also completely open to interpretation?
It's pretty open to interpretation. There's no real like story or concept behind it. It's more of like a theme. Um, so yeah, it's open for people to take from it what they will, for sure.
Okay. Now, kind of going into the history of Allegiant, I believe Proponent for Sentience was actually your first record with the band, right?
Yes.
So when you came into Allegiant, were you looking at the catalog previously and being like, this is what I have to do, or did the rest of the band kind of want you to bring a little bit of your own mix?
No, I actually didn't really listen to Allegiant before I joined the band. I don't listen to a lot of metal in my spare time. It's just something that I've been playing for such a long time that it's like generally what people seek me out for in music. So I was not really familiar with their back catalog at all. I listened to their singles and stuff like that just to kind of get an idea of what Ezra sounded like, because I didn't want to deviate too far vocally. I didn't want to like just start doing brutal death metal right off the bat. Make it a smooth changeover. So I did a little bit of research, but I wasn't like super familiar with their previous material going into writing or recording for Proponent.
Yeah. Well, I find it unique because, like, from listening to the earlier stuff, I don't think a lot of people were expecting like a very melodic version of like the Subdivisions cover or something like that. So
Yeah, well, that kind of had a strategic purpose to it. It's like Greg has wanted to have clean vocals in Allegiant for a really long time, but that's just not Ezra's type of singing. You know what I mean? So when I joined the band and, he knew that I could do that clean style from my work with Son of Aurelius, we wanted to introduce the idea, but we didn't want to do it in such a way that might put off pre-existing fans. So, that's why we got Bjorn from Soilwork to do the chorus on Proponent for Sentience 3 to kind of like introduce the idea of cleans in Allegion's original music so that you could kind of hear what it might sound like. And then with the cover, it was kind of to introduce my voice into Allegiant so you could hear what it would sound like, but as a cover so that it's not like, oh, this guy's singing all over their original material. And then there is that one section in Cognitive Computations that has like a tiny little clean break. So it's like just enough to kind of hear what it might sound like when placed tastefully within the song. So it was all very deliberate and all very strategized to kind of introduce the idea of cleans without being too jarring to the audience.
yeah. Well, I thought that it was still, even with the clean, still very, very heavy. Like, it wasn't like you guys were like metalcore or something like that.
Yeah, no, it's we don't really try to apply to a particular style when it comes to stuff like that. We try to be true to the original while adding our own flavor to it, and however it comes out, so yeah, I was happy with it.
And the final question I want to ask you is, this going to be like my 5th or 6th time seeing Allegiant tonight. I haven't missed a New York City show since the Neil Bliviscaris tour you did at the end of 2017. So one thing I find unique is that seeing you live is a completely different experience than just listening to the album. And I'm really excited to hear the Apoptosis material live for the first time. When it comes to playing your material live, is there a different energy that you channel into the live presence as opposed to when you're in the studio, or is there maybe at all like a similar method behind the madness?
It's really like a per show kind of thing. A lot of being a performer, particularly a frontman, is being able to like read the crowd and provide the crowd opportunities to engage and interact and all that kind of stuff. There's a few things that like we kind of have planned out throughout the set. We recently added a lot of production to our live performance. There's a lot more lights and fog and breaks like that that accent the set in certain ways. But as far as like the energy that I put forward personally, it's really like it's a give and take between me and the audience. Like, I'm always try to be high energy kind of thing. It's not like if the crowd is super dead, I'm just going to play a lame show. But being able to feed off of audience reactions and if I see some guy like singing the whole set in the front row, like I'll generally like give him the microphone for a second, things like that that contribute to what I think is like a memorable live performance for everyone. So there's no real planning that goes into it, I wouldn't say, on my end. It's more of like a in the moment kind of thing, and then just the way I perform personally adds that personality to the actual performance.
Yeah, because I feel like not only being able to execute the parts is the like main focus as the front man, but there's crowd interaction, feeling the room, and all that stuff. It's almost like multiple strategies.
Yeah, for sure. And it's it's kind of stuff that's like I don't really think about too much now that I've been doing it for so long, but it's definitely, mulling around. I'm trying to stay aware of what's going on around me while I'm on stage for sure.
So before we go, I want to thank you again for coming back on. Is there just anything else with Allegiant that you would like to promote for the Apoptosis record cycle, if you're allowed to say?
Yeah, we've got some cool plans for next year. Definitely going to be doing another U.S. Canada run, possibly another European run as well. Maybe hitting some of those festivals this next summer. So we've got the next year pretty much planned out, at least for the first half of it. So keep an eye open for all that good stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, man.
Absolutely, man. Thank you.
Everybody, Riley of Allegiant. Be sure to pick up Apoptosis if you haven't already. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We'll see you next time.